Good evening and welcome to GSRW Presents. And I'd like to introduce the president of Golden State Republican Women, Janet Price.
I am so excited about tonight, and I want to welcome ladies and gentlemen and guests to the very first Golden State Republican Women event. It's historic. I am delighted and thrilled that this night can happen. And so I want to welcome you to the first of our candidate series. We will be having many events, but this is the very first of our candidate series. And we have had a team who's been working very hard putting this night together. I would like to introduce them to you as I thank them. And we have Golden State Republican Women First VP, Gretchen Cox. Thank you for your work on this, Gretchen. We also have third VP, Nancy Wofford of Political Activities. Gretchen is Programs and Nancy is Political Activities. We also have a tech team and our webmaster, Sherry Gillis, has been working very hard on this. And also on that team is Audrey Voigt. And Audrey, if you would wave, I want to make sure you heard me. There we go. So we have a wonderful evening planned for you, a wonderful speaker. So honored to have her. And I am going to turn this over to Nancy to introduce our speaker for tonight.
It is my honor to introduce our first speaker in the 2023-2024 candidate series. It is US Senatorial candidate Gary-Denice-Pandol. She has a degree in political science and an advanced degree in international relations. While attending graduate school, she worked with top security clearances for Analytical Assessments Corporation, which is a think tank dealing with national security concerns. Her educational focus was on Middle Eastern affairs, national security, and United States foreign policy. Her background is in intelligence, analysis, and research. Gary-Pandol is well known for her written and verbal communication skills, and she is an experienced educator, public speaker, radio broadcaster, and podcaster. With an American First doctrine, she believes in service over self and describes herself as a fixer and a fighter with solutions. Her goals are to regulate the economy, lower taxes, secure the border, empower police, fix the California water crisis, give all students and their parents the right to school choice, and so much more. Please welcome Denice Gary-Pandol, candidate for United States Senate.
Thank you so much, Nancy. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be with everyone here tonight. Welcome. I think I'd like to begin by talking about what we need to get done to make this nation secure. And I'd like to focus on the border crisis, if I may, to begin with. I don't think a lot of you people in the United States and here in California understand that Democrats have been working with NGOs, non-governmental organizations that are involved with funding the kinds of human trafficking and drug cells here in this state, in the beautiful Golden State of California, and nationwide. So we not only have the Democrats through these NGOs supporting organizations that are killing the youth of America through fentanyl drugs, but they're also involved in the sale of human beings. And I think it's extremely important for all of you to know that as your United States Senator, one of the first things I would like to work on is making crime illegal again in the state of California and in the nation. And I'd like to remind people that talk about immigration reform. I had Fox News, American Newsroom on the other day, and some of you may be fans of Dana Perino, and she came on and she said something about immigration reform. I want to say, ladies and gentlemen, and guests with us tonight, We have a thing called federal law, and federal law, according to Title 8, and by the way, you can look this up on my website, Denice, D-E-N-I-C-E, GaryPandol.com. On my website, I have a link to Title 8, Section 1182, and it clearly states inside federal code that you cannot enter the United States of America if you don't have documentation that grants you permission. If you don't have documentation that shows that you have no criminal ties to any criminal network or terrorist organization. According to Title 8, Section 1182, you cannot enter the United States of America if you're going to be a ward of the state. What does that mean, to be a ward of the state? That means that if you're going to get cash, if you're going to get a place to live, if you're going to get transportation and food and medical care and dental care, in other words, if all your needs are going to be met by the state, which is exactly what's happening to the over 6 million people, souls that have come across the border illegally without any proper vetting or understanding who they are or where they're going or what their intentions are. This is exactly what's happening. They're becoming a ward of the state. And you're spending, I mean, this is more than a national security issue, it's an economic issue. You're spending billions of dollars because you have to take care of these individuals. And when it is found out and there is criminal activity, and by the way, we have numerous people that have come across the border that are involved in Islamic terror cells. As someone who's had top secret clearances, worked on issues to keep you safe, to keep your family safe, to keep every Californian and American safe. We have groups like Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, ISIS, Palestinian groups, working with drug cartels that literally will move above ground, but they also have dug tunnels, and we have tunnels coming into California and tunnels coming into other states along the border, and they're bringing individuals and weapons. So this is a critical issue. So I thought I would lead with that tonight to say that we don't need immigration reform. We don't need it overhauled. What we need to do is enforce the law. And the Constitution of the United States, and I have an advanced degree in political science as well as an undergraduate degree. The political science advanced degree did focus on international relations. And one of the things that you learn when you're getting an advanced degree in that field is something about constitutional law. And when you have 6 million people coming into the United States of America, that is called an invasion. We don't have some, I mean, there are states in the United States of America that don't have 6 million people living in them. That's a lot of people who we know nothing about and we're paying for right now. So that's kind of a big deal in terms of security. I don't know about you, but I don't let people come into my home when I don't know anything about them or who they are. It's just a safety issue. So it's the same for a great big country like the United States of America and a great big state like California. So I guess the point that I want to make tonight is I need the Republican Party to get behind me. And we need to get this message out because there are Democrats and independents that will agree with this common sense message that you need to know who you're bringing into the country as a matter of safety, keeping our neighborhoods safe, our communities safe, keeping our schools safe. And part of that is not just the drug cartels that are literally having their agents in every state in the union, but it's also about slavery. And I need everyone in this meeting tonight to take this message forward, that in 1854, there was some legislation passed by the United States Congress. It was called the Kansas-Nebraska Act. And it stated in that law that for every free state that entered our union, a slave state had to enter the union as well. And we had about 10,000 Americans who came together in the northern part of this country. 10,000 got together in one state, in one community, in a grove of oak trees in July. And they said, you know what? We don't want slavery in America anymore. We stand for freedom, and we're going to create a new party in America. And that party, ladies and gentlemen, was called the Republican Party. And we had a man that had the guts to run on an anti-slavery platform for the presidency of the United States. And if you wonder what the presidential platform was for 1860, you can go and read it. It's on the internet. That was the first anti-slavery presidential platform in our early history in 1860. And he ran on it. A man by the name of Abraham Lincoln ran on that anti-slavery platform, even though his life was constantly threatened. He barely won that election, but he did manage to eke out a win. And under his leadership, slavery was ended in the United States of America. We need to get the message out, ladies and gentlemen, to every American that the Democratic Party, and under the leadership of the Democrats, slavery is back in America today. And as someone who has contacts and as someone who appreciates the fact that we have in every state in our union children that are being sold into the sex slave trade, children that are being sold into the labor trade. 11-year-old girls are sold over and over and over again to be raped several times a day, several times a week, and in every week of the month until they die. As your United States Senatorial candidate, what I want to say to all of you and to every Californian and every American tonight is that it is important for us to make human trafficking not just a serious felony, but punishable by death. Because when you traffic 11-year-old girls, they don't live long because they're drugged, they're beaten, they're starved because they don't want to cooperate. What child wants to cooperate with being raped every day, several times a day? I certainly wouldn't cooperate. No doubt you wouldn't either. You just don't last very long. The longest amount of time I know of anybody being able to survive that kind of tortured lifestyle is 7 years. And oftentimes people will commit suicide, just because they can't take it anymore. So I want you to know that it's important for all of us to take this message to every Democrat and Independent and Republican and undeclared in this state. And we need to say that we need to end slavery once more in America, because in every state in the Union, the Democrats have brought this back. And there is no one in the Department of Homeland Security. There's no one in the White House. There's nobody in the Department of Justice. And we lack the leadership in the FBI today that will destroy this horrible stain on our record once more in the 21st century. So this is incredibly important that we close the border. And I know I've been called a racist by certain segments of the Democratic Party because I'm talking about closing the border, but there's nothing racist about wanting to protect lives. And I'm talking about including the lives of children. Because when you have open borders, You have all kinds of nefarious organizations crossing that border that are involved in the slave trade. And that's critically important for you to know. And it's also critically important for you to understand that these just aren't Mexican drug cartels. These are other nefarious groups. So I want to share with you a story as the only United States candidate for US Senate that declared early to defeat Dianne Feinstein, right? So I entered the race. I signed up. I filed my papers with the FEC back in June of 2021. And I started my campaign to educate people in this state about what we needed to change to make our state great again and to help America be secure again. And one of the things that, of course, I talked about was needing to build the wall. And I was called a racist for this, but we need to get the message out to everyone that it's not racist to care about who is in our country, what they're doing inside our country, what their objectives are. And I want to say this, I think I'll pivot to school choice now. One of the things this country needs more than ever is people that are entering into fields like science and engineering. And if we're going to, if we're going to have immigration, which we have over 1 million people entering this country on an annual basis, and that's legally. So we have legally entering this country over 1 million people. We need to be paying attention to who we're granting these passports to come to America and to become an American, who these people are. Because we need to ensure that our country is healthy and strong. And of course, that also has to do with education. So if we're going to have people come over here, it might be helpful to have people entering our country that understand our language. We don't need to pay for them to learn to speak English. And as somebody in the field of education for many years, as well as involved in the intelligence community, I've had so many students in my class that cannot speak English, but they've been promoted through the system. And when I've taught on the college and university level, I've been told, don't give essay exams. Don't give an essay exam because they won't be able to take it. Just give a multiple choice or true, false. I mean, this is an indictment on community colleges and universities. That this is the kind of thing that educators are told today. And so we need to focus on ending slavery in America, ending the drug trade. And oh, by the way, when we have immigration into this country, there needs to be some sort of merit attached to it. And, President Trump was right in building the wall. Our former president was also right about building that wall underground in order to combat. And I don't know if a lot of you realize that, but that wall was being built underground as well in order to control the access to our country through those underground tunnels. And for those of you that don't know, as someone that has a Middle East specialist background, Hamas, the Islamic resistance movement out of the Gaza Strip, and Hezbollah, the terrorist organization that controls Lebanon today, that's on Israel's northern border, those groups are constantly building tunnels into Israel today in order to commit acts of sabotage, in order to commit acts of terrorism. I mean, they've literally, I know Israelis that have been sitting at their tables for dinner at night and they're hearing digging underneath their dining room floor because tunnels are being built into southern Israel or northern Israel. It's a really important issue. And it's something that the terror cells here in California, we have numerous terror cells up and down the state and across the country, and it's a big deal. So I want to say that We absolutely have to close the border, but you need to elect Denice Gary-Pandol for US Senate, because I will work to make sure that that is accomplished, and that we have leadership in the Department of Homeland Security, in the FBI, and in the DOJ that's actually going to enforce things like Title VIII, Section 1182. We have so many laws. By the way, with respect to COVID and the fact that Title 42 was taken down, Title VIII, Section 1182 also states that if anybody enters this country that has any kind of communicable disease or any other kind of sickness or disease, they're not allowed to enter our country. That's also federal law, people. That's the law of the land. So it's important that we take a look at this, but also let's talk about school choice. So one of the things Nancy mentioned when she was introducing me is the fact that I support what the House passed. The House of Representatives, under the leadership of Speaker McCarthy, successfully passed legislation calling for a parental bill of rights. We absolutely need that in the United States today, when we have the Democrats telling us that the children are belonging to the state, and that it's perfectly acceptable to them to teach the children of America and the state of California things like gender dysphoria. I've had mothers come up to me statewide, and grandparents come up to me and say, I have a granddaughter, or I have a daughter, or I have a son, and they're not sure anymore who they are. I mean, they're confused. They don't seem to understand they're a little boy, or, my granddaughter, she's a little girl, and she's confused about that today. And it's causing her depression. She's only 7 years old, but she's feeling anxiety and depression. She's worried about who she's going to be when she grows up, what she's going to do with her life. And I'm just shocked to hear this by grandparents and parents. Excuse me. I had one situation in which I was told that the public school teacher in that county, the public school teachers were allowed to put kitty litter boxes here in California, kitty litter boxes inside the classroom, so that, excuse me, a little water there, so that children that thought they were going to be a cat that day could act out in a kitty litter box. I thought that was incredibly abusive to the other children in the classroom, but abusive to that child or those children in that classroom that thought they were going to be an animal that day, and they were going to be so indulged that this kind of behavior would be allowed in our public school classrooms in California today. So this is an incredibly important issue, that we save the next generation of Americans and people living here in the state of California. And we have to hold public schools accountable. And the best way to do that is to create competition. And the way we can create competition is, as your United States Senator, what I, Denice Gary-Pandol, want to get accomplished by working with other people in the US Senate and with Speaker McCarthy in the House of Representatives, is I want to get legislation passed that will allow the taxpayer dollars. It suddenly got very dark in my office. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I'm trying to lighten things up a little bit. So I turned on a lamp here in my office. But anyway, I hope that helps. So back to what we were saying regarding school choice. It's really important, I think, that parents' tax dollars be able to stay in an account that will follow their children or child from grades K through 12. Because if you're a parent and you say to yourself, I want my child to not have to be confused about their gender, then I think that they should be able to put their child in another school where maybe the focus is actually on reading, writing, arithmetic, and STEM courses. Again, I want to make the point and underscore it. Science, technology, engineering, and math. These are incredibly important subjects in which there's a deficit. Educationally speaking, there's a deficit in these areas of study in America today. But this is what America needs: science, technology, engineering, and math. And we need a focus on that in our educational institutions, grades K through 12. And so gender dysphoria needs to be eliminated. I think that I'm going to win Democrats and independents over to the Republican Party if I can get all of us to pull together and make it clear that they've got a candidate running that will, of course, give them parents, the parents of California and this country, a voice in their child's education so that they can afford to pull their child out of a failing public school and put them in a homeschool co-op or a parochial school or a charter school of their choice. That's critical. And I want to say one other thing. I'd like to address the fact that China and countries like Qatar is a Islamic state, it's a Gulf state in the Middle East. China and Qatar and Russia, those three countries spend the most money here in California and around the country in propaganda. They spend hundreds of millions of dollars every year. And one of the things that they've done is create this situation in our schools of America today, focusing on gender dysphoria as well as critical race theory. And I want to remind all of you that Martin Luther King said in his I Have a Dream speech, he pointed out to the American people that his dream was that people would no longer look at the color of one's skin, but at the quality of their character. This is what the Chinese, this is what Islamic groups, terrorist groups, groups that are wanting to destabilize and destroy the United States of America and the Golden State. This is what China and these Islamic states, Iran, particularly Iran, North Korea, Cuba, these countries are wanting to do, is get us focused on identity, whether it's confused about your gender or focused on racial identity as a way to divide America. And this diversity message has created so much adversity, so much problems today in education that we need to get back to a place where we look at the civil rights movement and we applaud Martin Luther King and we say, absolutely, it's not about the color of your skin. Who cares? It's about the quality. It's about who you are as a person and what you're contributing to your home, to your local church or synagogue, to your state, to your country. What are you giving? What are you sacrificing to make this a better place for the next generation to live? And I think that ought to be the message. And I think that's a message that Democrats and independents will appreciate and enjoy. And we've got to get that out there. Another thing, and of course, that's all about school choice. So just know that when we work to get legislation passed in the US Senate and in the House, that is going to create competition in every county, in every state in the union. And that competition will be good for public school teachers and the unions that represent them. And so let's pivot. I want to talk about how I can make our state affordable again for you and for the working class, for the middle class, for the upper middle class, for small businesses. Small businesses, ladies and gentlemen, are anywhere from 5 people to 500 people. We've got to save small businesses in California. We've got to save small businesses in the nation. Let's talk about that for just a moment. So one of the things that you don't hear, Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, you don't hear any Republicans. I don't hear anybody. So, you know, I'm running for United States Senate. Of course, I want all of your endorsement. But, and I'm going to say this quite clearly and plainly. I don't hear any other candidate talking about how we have to deregulate the economy in every industry. So let's start with small business. I talk to small business owners up and down this state, and they say to me, Denice, I've got a mountain. I've got a mountain of paperwork I've got to fill out. There's all these additional taxes. There are all these regulations. So ladies and gentlemen, do you realize that under the Biden administration, think about this. Every household represented at this meeting tonight, you're paying $15,000 more a year out of your family budget to pay for what? You're paying for regulations. That's right. So the Biden administration and the Democrats, tell this to your family and friends that are Democrats and independents. Tell them they're paying $15,000 more a year to pay for all the regulations, and I'm going to tell you what some of them are. Just give me a minute. And then you tell them, and that doesn't even count inflation. That doesn't count the inflationary prices on food, on fuel, to pay for your cooling this summer, to pay for your heating this winter. I'm not just talking about fuel at the gas pump. I'm talking about what it takes to ramp up or ramp down an electric grid to keep your home cool in the summer. So let's talk about that for a moment. We have to cut spending. How many of you know that Biden is set to double the US debt, double the $1 trillion debt of the United States of America this year, doubling our debt as a nation? You need to elect Denice Gary-Pandol for US Senate because I do want to balance the budget. I want to deregulate the economy. So let's talk about how I can get this accomplished with other US senators and with people in the House of Representatives. Let's talk about water. So, for example, we have something in California called the California Water Board. And the California Water Board has decided this last year to turn off the water to our farmers, in some cases up to and including 97% of their water intake. Okay. What does that mean when you turn off the water to California farmers? That means that the price of food goes way up, right? So the farmers aren't seeing any profit. It's not like the farmers are making more money. The farmers are having to spend more money to get their crops grown, and then they're having to pay more money to get their crops, their production, to market, to the grocery store, to the restaurant, to the farmer's market. So the farmers are not only having to pay more money for water, but they're having their water turned off. Think about the ranchers. Think about people that are selling their cattle in the state of California. What does that mean to the price of beef? Your meat prices have gone up. I just bought a loaf of bread the other day for $4.31. I couldn't believe it. That's incredible to me. So I think it's important that all of us realize that one of the first things that we need to have done is we need to, by the way, I want a full screen again. Okay, there we go. One of the things that we need to do is we need to get rid of NEPA. How many of you know what NEPA is? NEPA is the National Environmental Policy Act. It was passed in 1970. What has it done for us? It's really nearly destroyed the farming and ranching industries of America. So let's talk about California. California provides over 400 commodities. Wow. There are people running for US Senate that I'm running to defeat right now that don't even know it. I doubt Adam Schiff knows that. I doubt Katie Porter knows it. I doubt Eric Early, who I'm running against, my fellow Republican, knows that. We've got 400 commodities that our beautiful Golden State is providing this state and this country and the global community. We provide here in the state of California, we provide over 2/3 of all the fruit and the nuts that are consumed. Again, not just here in our great big state of California, but in the nation and the world. Here in the state of California, our farmers, they're providing almost half of all the vegetables that are eaten by you, by me, here in California, the nation, and the world. Think about what that means. What that means is you've got legislation that was passed in 1970 called NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, that has created things like the environmental policy, right? The EPA, the environmental policy agency. You've got groups like the California Water Board. You've got FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commercial. So I started commission, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. What are these agencies doing? Well, a story I wanted to share with you is when I was in Siskiyou County earlier, I guess it was a couple months ago, maybe 2 or 3 months ago now, and I was way up there. That borders, by the way, for those of you who don't know, Siskiyou County borders Oregon. It's a beautiful county in Northern California. And we've got a lot of illegal immigrants up there. And and in Siskiyou County, they've got 4 major dams. So what do those 4 major dams provide? They provide water. They provide water for food production. They provide a tremendous fishing industry. Those dams help provide hydroelectric power. Those dams provided support in putting out forest fires in Siskiyou, because Siskiyou is known for its beautiful forests up there. But guess what FERC has done this summer? FERC has destroyed, think about this, because of NEPA, this federal regulatory agency, FERC, was created, and FERC is destroying 4 dams in Northern California that put fish on your table. Do you wonder why the price of fish keeps going up? Well, you can blame every Democrat that votes for these regulatory agencies that have bureaucrats sitting at their desk in the state of California figuring out new ways to regulate your life, and you're paying for it $15,000 a year, plus you're paying for it through inflation. And they're doing it because they can, and there's nothing seemingly we can do about it, because this is coming from the federal government. Well, I'm here to tell you, as somebody that knows something about constitutional law and is taught and knows about political science, that there's nothing in the Constitution, there's no fourth branch of government called the bureaucracy. So the fact that the fishing industry of California is being destroyed because a federal regulatory commission decided that those dams did not need to remain in our state. They destroyed. So when you destroy a dam, all the fishing, all the fishing industry, all the jobs around the fishing industry are destroyed. So all those people are out of work. Their homes that were there along the river and the dam, they had to move and find new homes, because when you release all that water from 4 dams up there, what happens? that water explodes, right? It destroys everything in its pathway. So people's homes, farms, ranches, fishing businesses, everything, because that's a lot of water to suddenly release. Think about the Californians in our state that have had to go through that this summer. I was up there. I videotaped it. It's on Facebook. I hope every one of you will share out to radio shows and television networks the videos that I've done. I got out there in the rain in my high heels and explained what's happening to the fishing industry in Northern California that's going to shoot up the price of fish across the country and make it harder for people to be able to afford to eat it. That's incredible to me. Let me tell you another story. I know this is getting back a little bit to my mention of illegal immigration, but let me just share this. We've got so many illegals that have come over from China and Russia, from Laos and Cambodia, and up in Siskiyou County, those poor people. You know, it's illegal in Siskiyou County to grow marijuana. And marijuana, by the way, has become a lot more dangerous. It's not the marijuana of the 1960s. Anyway, these marijuana grows that are happening illegally, the sheriff's department up there in Siskiyou County can't get it under control. And he's not getting any help or support from the federal government. He's not getting any help or support from the state government. As your United States Senator, again, I want to make crime illegal again in our state. And one way we can do that, or one way I can work hard to do that here in our state, is, you know, in Washington, you can withhold funding. You can withhold funding to cities and counties that have DAs that refuse to uphold the law, who refuse to enforce the law. So there is purse strings that are available. But, you know, the House of Representatives, even though they have a slight Republican majority, they need a majority in the United States Senate that can work with them to make sure that money doesn't go and flow into counties with these DAs that are not upholding the laws of our land. And it is a crime that we've got illegals from China and Russia and Southeast Asia working and are involved in a criminal network up there in Siskiyou County that are involved in the drug trade, that are involved in human trafficking up there, that are involved in contaminating the water supply because they're using chemicals to protect these marijuana grows. So the chemical treatment that they're using is getting in the water supply, and what is being done about it. Let me say something else. Let's pivot a little bit. I want to get back to water and farmers for a moment. So let me share this to you, or share this with you. I'm sorry. One of the things that was also deeply disturbing to me was when I was talking to farmers here statewide in California, and they were telling me how California and these agencies were turning off the water to their farms. One of the farmers I spoke to said that he took his money and he built a well on his property with his own money. And he was being taxed for every drop of water that he pulled out of the well that he built on his land with his money. And he was, and get this, ladies and gentlemen, it's illegal in the state of California for a farmer or a rancher or for you or for me to build a rainwater capture system on our property. So nobody can get the rain that falls free of charge from heaven and capture that rainwater and use it to grow food or to feed their livestock. That should be a crime. And as your United States Senator, I want you to know that one of the first things I'm going to do for this state and for this country is to get legislation passed. And I believe Ted Cruz and Marsha Blackburn and others will work with me. I want to get legislation passed that will mandate water infrastructure. How many of you good people in this on this Zoom meeting tonight, how many of you know that you've spent $30 billion? That's right. Your taxes. We've been spending $30 billion over the last 25 years to get a dam built in our state. When was the last time we got a dam built in our state? In the 1980s. Write it down. I've done my homework. You can do yours. Check it out on my website. The last time we built a dam or reservoir for a farmer or a rancher in the state of California was in the 1980s. What happened? Where is that $30 billion that the taxpayers of California gave to the state of California to get dams and reservoirs built? I want to tell you another little story. I was traveling up to Hollister, California to speak there. And as I was driving, I looked over to the side of the road. And on the side of the road, I saw a sign. And the sign said Sites Reservoir, S-I-T-E-S, Sites Reservoir. And I'm looking at the sign, and I couldn't believe it. There was, ladies and gentlemen and guests, we passed that bill. That initiative was passed in 2014. There's just a sign on the side of the road that says Sites Reservoir. There hasn't been a shovel. There's no digging, nothing, zero, a sign, Sites Reservoir. One of the things I want to do as your United States Senator is I want to take that $30 billion that's owed you, the taxpayer of California, and I want to get that money spent on those dams and reservoirs. Where is the money? You know where the money is? We're going to find that money, and we're going to find it because it's being spent on the Environmental Protection Agency and every other bureaucracy in California that's preventing those dams from being built, because that's what they're doing. They're constantly doing environmental studies. And one of the reasons why those dams were destroyed in Northern California was because they wanted to save the fish. They kill the fish when they destroyed those dams, because when you let loose that kind of water, those fish are killed. And it'll take years for the fish population to be able to rebuild up in Northern California, and for anybody to just go fishing up there and catch a fish for dinner that night. It's incredible. But I want you to know that as your U.S. Senator, I will expose the corruption and get the money spent that you have literally already provided to the government to do the job of infrastructure. That money is there, and we need to claim it. We need to reclaim it and use it. I want to share another story. I want to talk about the oil and gas industry. So I live in Kern County. I know a little something about the oil and gas industry. I want to say this. If we want to end inflation in America today, we're going to have energy independence. Energy independence equals national security. It also means economic growth and prosperity. It means lowering the price of food at the grocery store. It means lowering the price of fuel at the gas pump and in every other way. So this is what we do. Let me share this. China has just found trillions of cubic feet of natural gas in the South China Sea. So I need you to take my message to Democrats and independents, or just give me enough money so that I can buy the radio spots on these radio shows up and down the state and do some television commercials. That would be helpful. We need to get the message out to Democrats and independents that China, one of the reasons why they're weaponizing those islands in the South China Sea, and they're not allowing Japan or South Korea or any other country to get next to them, is they found trillions of cubic feet of natural gas in the South China Sea. They have also found, get this, billions of barrels of untapped oil in the South China Sea. And China today is in the process of building 6 new oil refineries, and they're putting a coal plant online about every 8 days. What does that mean to you? That means that the strongest military in the world, China has the largest standing army in the world, bigger than the United States of America. China has the largest and biggest navy in the world, bigger than America. China has supersonic ballistic missiles that can reach California like that, and we don't have the missile defense system to protect us properly here in our state. China has the gas and the oil that they need to win the next war. And I want to remind everybody a little bit of history. Let me call your attention to World War I, the Great War. What did the Allies, what did the British say when the war was over in 1918? They said, we rose to victory on a wave of oil. Who provided that to our allies? The United States of America and the state of California. California used to be the largest exporter of oil and gas in the country. We were number one. California was number one. We need to be number one again. Share this, share that with a Democrat and Independent, and then you share this. You say, Denice cares about the environment. Republicans care about the environment. The first president that was a conservationist that cared about the environment was a Republican. His name was Theodore Roosevelt. He was the first conservationist, the first president that showed any concern at all with the environment. They're Republican. The Republicans ended slavery. They were the first conservationists, the first environmentalists in America. Denice Gary-Pandol cares about the environment. And she's here to tell you today, ladies and gentlemen, that the state of California that used to be number one and the major exporter of oil and gas to our country and to our world, we're importing dirty, filthy oil from Saudi Arabia and Iraq. The Democrats, Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, Barbara Lee, these Democrats that are running to defeat me, they want to get that dirty, filthy oil from Venezuela and from other Middle Eastern countries and from Mexico and Canada. That stuff is filthy. We produce the cleanest oil and gas and coal in the world today, thanks to good old American ingenuity. Yeah, we can give ourselves a pat on the back. We can give our scientists and engineers that continue to do a tremendous amount of research and innovation in this area. We need to thank the American scientists and engineers for this. Do you realize that the United States of America has cut its carbon footprint in half? We, the United States of America, have cut, and we're the most industrialized country in the world. We've cut our carbon footprint in half. We've got the cleanest fuels in the world, but we've got leadership in Washington because the Democrats still control the United States Senate, and they still want to import oil from the Middle East and from these other countries. But I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that if you vote for Denice Gary-Pandol for United States Senate and help me get elected and we win this, that what I'll do is get legislation passed to protect and expand the fossil fuel industry. Do you realize that if the United States of America, if California just built more oil refineries, if we could just get to 18 billion barrels of oil production a day in this country, we could take care of all of our allies. What's Japan doing today, ladies and gentlemen? Japan just signed a deal with Russia to buy oil and gas from Russia. Why? Because we're not producing it. We're not making it available to our allies and to Japan. That's horrific. We need to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Will you have time for a couple of questions before the end of the half hour?
Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to say, it is so amazing.
I know it's hard to.
We should have a 3-hour Zoom. So filled with this, but I just want, because honestly, Denise, it's hard for me to sit in my chair
Okay.
and listening to you. And I just know we have to get to questions because we promised our ladies that they'd have the chance to do it. So Nancy is ready and Gretchen is ready, but I just have to tell you how moving it has been to hear you and to hear your passion. And we need you there.
Thank you, Janet.
Absolutely. And this is treasonous. What's going on, you have mentioned every single thing. It is pure treason to take our country down.
Yes.
So it's up to us to listen to you and to build it back up. Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, yeah, we'll ask a couple of questions, and I did want to get your video in again, like you asked about playing the video again, and Sherry is set and ready for that, but we'll ask a couple of questions first.
Very good. I'm going to bring a little more light into the room. Just a moment.
Okay.
I'm sorry, my office became very dark all of a sudden. I apologize.
I just want, along the candidate line, I just want you to tell this group what makes you the unique choice of all the candidates on the slate for running.
Of every Republican and Democratic candidate on the slate, what makes me unique is I've had top secret clearances. In fact, I was in graduate school. Now you'll get an idea of just how old I am. I was in graduate school during Ronald Reagan's second term of office. In fact, the White House hired the think tank I was working for to do research. And one of the things that President Reagan was deeply concerned about was the number of terror cells here in the United States and the war that was being waged on Americans that the American people were not aware of, but the war that was being waged on the American public very clandestinely through Hezbollah and various Palestinian groups here in California and across the nation. And so after the 1982 bombing of those Marines, remember 241 Marines were blown up in Beirut, Lebanon, and they were there to help keep the peace. Anyway, that was a terrorist there were several terrorist organizations involved backed by Iran. And President Reagan hired the think tank I was working for and other agencies to look into how we can effectively combat Islamic terrorism in our country, here on the homeland, and abroad. In fact, I was once engaged to, well, Philip Haney has since been killed, but I was engaged to one of the founding members of the Department of Homeland Security after that terrible Islamic attack here in America, which many of us expected. We expected a 9/11 to happen. It wasn't a surprise. I had been engaged to Philip Haney, who was a founding member of the Department of Homeland Security in 2003. And he, like me, was very much involved in the intelligence community and he was a whistleblower on the Obama-Biden administration. And he blew the whistle on how they were making America vulnerable, how Obama and Biden were making America vulnerable to terrorist attack during Obama's two terms of office. Really an important issue that hasn't really got the discussion that it should have. I'm the only candidate on the Democrat and Republican side that has that background. I'm the only candidate who actually started running for US Senate back in 2021 and has continued to work night and day up and down this state to educate Californians on the fact that they need to be inspired and encouraged to get out and vote again. So many of them didn't want to vote in 2022. And I'm trying to encourage them. We can win, but we've got to all pull together and fight together to make that happen. And there's just, I've been trying to light a fire under people to burn out that lack of enthusiasm and to
Yeah.
say we can do this.
Yeah, with the top two elections, we need to support our Republican candidates. And can you tell us how we can help support you? Where can we go? What can we do to like make donation?
Thank you. So if you'd go to Denice, you can see how you spell my name. It's with a C. My mother studied French all through high school.
I made that
And,
mistake once.
and she loved the French culture very. So anyway, Denice is spelled with a C after the city of Nice in France.
Oh.
Gary-Pandol.com, DeniceGary-Pandol.com. There's no hyphen in the website. I need contributions. I need to be able to buy radio spots, television spots. I'd love to do a television commercial. Anything that I know people are having a struggle at this time. I appreciate that. I understand it. Anything that you can do, if you can do the maximum amount for a United States senator for any one individual is $3,300, couples at $6,600. But if all anybody can afford is $25, thank you so very much. God can take that and he can use it. And I just pray that, the money will all be there, that we can successfully get some of these radio spots and television ads that we really need, because Adam Schiff, he's got name recognition. And I'm trying to combat that, and I need your help. I need the help of the Republican Party. I hope some of you will give a phone call to Kevin McCarthy and say, endorse Denice Gary-Pandol for US Senate. He's got the money. He could really support my campaign. And I know he gave $1 million to Duarte to help him win his congressional seat. I think John Duarte won his seat for U.S. Congress by about 900 votes.
Mm-hmm.
We can win this,
Yeah.
but I need your help. I need you to share out what I'm posting on Facebook, what I'm posting on Instagram, what I'm posting on, well, it's no longer called Twitter, it's called X. What else? True Social. I need people to share this out. If you have a radio show connection, if you have a local television, I'll drive to your city. I'll go on the local television station show, news show, whatever you need me to do. We've got to get the word out. We've got still time, and we need to make it happen. Those ladies out there and gentlemen, if you've got a club, if you've got an organization, let me know, contact me, DeniceGaryPandol.com. My phone number is 661-747-1829. You can call me. I just gave you my phone number. You can call me. You can say, I'm part of a realtor association. I'm part of a small business. I'm part of this group or that group. We could get you some PAC money. There's lots of organizations out there, and I'm thinking about the Realtors Association of California. They've got a lot of PAC money out there. If you've got some ties to some of these groups, put me in front of them. I'll talk to them. And help educate people on because I'm the only person that's running for office that's giving any solutions. I just was at a candidate forum with the Republicans that I was running against, and I was shocked, really taken back that not one solution was given to a single problem. The entire focus by the individuals was on attacking Schiff and Katie Porter and Barbara Lee and Biden. And I'm thinking, we already know what the problems are. What we need to talk about is on day one, when you're in that seat, what are you going to do to fix and help people in our state to get their lives back on track? Whether it's their children in a school or it's your family budget and getting food prices and gas prices. I want to tell you something. Saudi Arabia just announced, I don't know if you caught this today, But Saudi Arabia just announced they're going to cut production supplies to California and the United States of America through the end of the year. So this is what Saudi Arabia has done. But in the meantime, Saudi Arabia is over there in communist China, helping and investing in communist China, building these new oil refineries. And China, meanwhile, is helping fund and expand Russia's effort in Eastern Europe, in the Ukraine. I want to tell you something, ladies. That war in Ukraine never would have happened if I had been your United States Senator and if we had had a different president, because we would have energy independence and we would have given all of our allies the oil and gas that they needed, and they wouldn't have given one dime to Russia to build up their war machine to attack Ukraine. Oil and gas gives you leverage in the international community when you're negotiating a treaty.
Thank you.
Denice,
Gretchen?
yeah, I have a couple of questions that have come through either through chat or from a couple other sources. When you're elected, how will you get rid of some of the regulatory agencies that you were discussing earlier? What will you be able to do, and how strong do you think your support in the Senate would be to work on that?
Okay, so the answer to the first half of that question is, this is why I started early, okay? Was you have to educate people. So when you go up and down the state traveling for the last 18 months, as I have, you're telling people what they need to know, so that think about me on Fox News telling the nation, you need to call your senator in the United States Senate. You need to call your member in the House of Representatives, and you need to tell them that they need to support me in getting this legislation passed to overturn NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, so we can get rid of the EPA. I mean, you start educating people and making it an issue so that the other Americans get on the phone and they start calling and sending emails and tweets and texts, etc. That's how you do it. You put a fire under people and you start educating them. That's number one. Number two, there's 9 Republicans that are in the United States Senate that are conservative, as I am. I believe they're already on board. For example, Tom Cotton introduced legislation already that's called Not One More Inch. He wants to do what I want to do on day one, stop selling the American homeland to Chinese communist entities and Russian entities and any other foreign entity, so that they can establish intelligence infrastructure and take our water and our food supply, because that's what the Chinese are doing, and they're using it to feed their own military and hoard food for China because they're getting ready for the next war.
Right.
So
Thank you, Denise.
so I believe there's already people in the US Senate that I can work with, and the others, they just need to be informed. I can't stress enough, ladies, how many people I talk to and they don't know what I'm sharing. They don't.
I'm so sorry to cut you off. I apologize.
Get one more question in.
Whatever you
Yeah.
like. I'm here for the duration. I'm here to serve you.
Pull up our cots.
We have a question about shortages on over-the-counter flu and cold medications, and shortages in lots of medications.
Yes.
What can be done
Lots
from
of
your
things.
perspective to address that?
Lots of things. Number one, we need to bring the manufacturing and production of medicines and chemotherapy and cold and flu and antibiotics back to the United States. Today, ladies and gentlemen, this country imports the vast majority of chemotherapy drugs, antibiotics, and cold and flu. We import it from China and India. India and China. We need to become, just like we need to become energy independent, we need to become independent in terms of the medicines that we produce here in our country for our own people. And that is critically important. And what does that mean? So let's talk about lowering corporate tax. one of the things I want to do is get legislation passed to lower the corporate tax rate. It's currently, we're not competitive with China right now. We need to further lower the corporate tax rate. We need to make tax incentives available for companies that want to be a pharmaceutical company, that want to do the kind of research and investment in medicines that this country needs in order to produce what this country needs. We have everything that we could possibly need right here in America, but we've got to end the dependency on our medicines on China and India, because those drugs are inferior. Right now, cancer patients in America are being told by their cancer specialists that they're not going to be able to have the chemotherapy that they need to overcome the cancer in their life, because they can't get enough chemotherapy drugs to this country. And Biden, the Democrats, tell this to a Democrat or independent that you want to vote for me. You can say, Biden did a deal with a Chinese company called it's QI Laboratories in China. They've already been red flagged for selling toxic medicine in the United States. And we already know that their chemotherapy drugs are below our standards. But this is what the Biden administration is doing. We can lower the price if we have our own manufacturing, if we're having our own production, if we're making an abundant, right? It's only when the supply is shrunk that the prices continue to go up. And so, let's cut spending to illegals and get them deported. And why not spend some money on investing in medicine and the production of medicine in our own country?